Yes. Hold on. How the fuck do you add people on this bitch? Hold on one sec. Yo, what up, dude? Did you get that request? Alright. I was trying to see if you got that request to join. Let me see. Alright, so y'all have to bear with me because this is my first, trying to do this type of thing. Try to send it to him again. It already says, invited. TBH. But, let's see. While we figure that out, where the fuck should we begin? Alright, one person ask one question, and then let's begin there, and then spiderweb off that. Because besides this, I'm drinking and I just want some intellectual dialect on the subjects. I'll start with black holes. What does somebody think happens, say, if you were to theoretically go into a black hole? What would be a question that you would ask surrounding that? Let me start by just saying, I think that, if you went into a black hole, there might be a spaghettification factor, but then also you can't really say that that's going to be the only alternative, because it hasn't happened. And within a black hole, what happens if it's moving? That means that the singularity is moving, so that has to play a role into the effect. So let me see if I could. Let me try to invite Justin in here. You can't open your camera on your phone. Ripski. Dude, who the fuck is this Sarah Jody? She begets though. She really begets. Alright, Justin, just from here on this, what do you, okay, if you think that the universe will eventually go into a heat death. What do you think happens when, like, what do you think happens to our sun in the sense of, um, does it expand till it explodes, or
Ah, sweet. There we go.
oh, it's good, dude. That's really good.
All right.
All
So
right.
what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? All right.
Yeah,
So
I just basically just asked the question of, if say like a the universe does go into a heat death,
hmm
um, what would be the outcome of our sun? Would it expand into um, a point where it just kind of starts evaporating on itself, or would it kind of expand, recollapse, and then explode?
well, basically, like, the heat death of the universe will happen way, way long after our sun's like already died of natural causes. So, like, basically, the sun is when it reaches the end of its life, it'll run out of its hydrogen fuel, but not all of its hydrogen fuel because there's a part of the sun that just like cuts off the outer layers. But anyways, that's getting ahead of itself. So the sun's going to expand to a red giant at the end of its life, and then all of the outer layers are going to just evaporate off it, and then it'll just collapse into a white dwarf, and then cool off from there into like a black dwarf.
Oh, okay, okay. So when you get to black dwarf, now does the inner part of that black dwarf, does it ever get to the element of iron, or will it never reach that point where it has to like stop creating that element that say like we have discovered?
Basically, the sun's not massive enough to get to iron. Otherwise, if it did, it would like create a supernova. But it'll probably be mostly like carbon and oxygen kind of like thing. But it might even be a neutron star. We don't
Mhm.
know actually for sure if it's gonna actually just stay like as a carbon ball or a neutron star.
Okay. Um, okay, so all right. So I had a question pertaining to say like black hole. So basically, of my knowledge, which is just of kind of like the YouTube knowledge of just gathering from random scientists.
Uh-huh.
Uh, all right, so they say that when you go into a black hole,
Uh-huh.
from your perspective, you would, go through that whole spaghettification, but from another person's perspective, they would go into said hole and kind of start it would look like they were traveling towards the center, but they would never get to the singularity. And they would start shifting into the red spectrum, which like almost leads me to assume that you're just seeing their heat signature.
Well, if they get shift, like basically, you know how the Doppler effect works. So when you
Yeah.
hear the train, like it comes, like and it starts, it sounds a little bit high pitched, and then it goes to lower pitch as it leaves you. So a
Yeah.
redshift is basically the same thing, but for light. Like so, basically, you're seeing the light getting stretched as it's going heading away from you. That's what a redshift is. So basically,
Oh,
all you keep seeing is like the thing just heading away from you forever, and it doesn't actually hit the singularity because you can never see it hit the singularity.
okay. So so I don't know if you would like know about this, but what would happen if that singularity moved? And then what would be, say, if we were to see the black hole from space,
Uh-huh.
what would be, say, 2 centimeters behind it? Since it would only be two dimensional.
Um, it's really interesting actually because you know how like the black hole is singular, it's infinite gravity, right? So the gravity
Mhm.
acts as like a lens. So basically, you're seeing it'll bend the light around it. So seeing behind it, you can actually see like it'll be like you're seeing through it, like you know a glass orb, kind of like distorts
Oh,
everything.
okay. Yeah.
So it'll kind of be
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, okay. Okay. And so So say you were coming at say the black hole is kind of parallel with Earth, um, and we were being pulled towards it and everything. Now, what would somebody who's coming from the side view see? Like, would they be able to see like a tunnel that's almost kind of distorted within the gravity, or would they see just kind of space just continue as if nothing was happening?
They would see like just like kind of like that distortion of the glass kind of distortion kind of thing, and then they would see Earth getting torn to bits as parts of the Earth that is close to the black hole accelerates faster than the parts that are farther away from it. So
Okay.
basically, it would just be Earth getting torn to bits, and then this little glass thing, and then like it'll just orbit that thing and then enter the event horizon, and then just stop existing.
Oh, okay, I feel that. I feel that. Okay, okay. So, like, because I have like kind of like a base knowledge of it. Can you kind of explain like thermodynamics and then how we can link that to astrophysics?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a big question. Holy shit. Well,
That's
um,
what I've been thinking.
let's see. Let's see. Well, basically, thermodynamics is how heat transfers, like, the movement of heat, right? So, astrophysics is basically the motion of things in space. So,
Mm,
you can link this from that. It's kind of like heat is also a thing in space that moves, right? Like if your sunlight is heat, can be heat, right?
yeah.
So when you're dealing with energy, a lot of it is thermodynamics because you the way the energy moves through space is radiation, right?
Mm,
And heat is also radiation, and heat can be light too. If heat is infrared radiation, right? So
yeah.
you can kind of model the same thing with uh, the astrophysics and thermodynamics. But basically, that's also called quantum dynamics because it's not all heat, and energy behaves a little bit differently depending on how it takes
Mm,
wavelength, right? So like there's this whole field of physics called quantum dynamics, which is really interesting actually, and I think a lot of people would be interested in looking that up. But to link this together, it's just like the laws of thermodynamics is that basically has some specific rules, right? The that you can't energy can't be created or destroyed. That's one of the fundamental rules. That's the conservation of energy. And then there's the conservation of momentum, which governs mass, which is that you can't destroy momentum, which is how inertia works. And then there's also the conservation of matter, which is basically matter. You can't, destroy matter in the chemical sense, right? And
yeah.
the conservation of matter is like the most basic one. You can easily break that rule because, nuclear physics, obviously. But like the conservation of energy and the conservation of momentum are actually fundamental rules that cannot be broken. So that's how thermodynamics kind of relates to astrophysics.
Okay. So, okay. Can I relate it to the fact? Okay, so say with thermodynamics, it deals with like an explosion, which
Mm-hmm.
is like almost kind of like two forces kind of reacting in an explosive manner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would the Big Bang have to be created from something, or could it be just kind of like
See,
just
that's really interesting because we don't actually know what happened at the Big Bang. We only know what happened like immediately after the Big Bang. We don't know what happened at the point or time zero. We can only get to like time point 0.0000000001, right? So we don't know.
right?
So
Okay.
yeah, and that is a legitimate answer and it's a legitimate question, but honestly, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking of kind of the theory behind thermodynamics. Would two forces need to cause an explosion to happen,
Well,
or could it?
in the traditional sense, yeah, because causality is a thing, right? Because
Yeah.
something has to cause something. Something can't come from nothing, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we don't know what happened at that point. And we don't even know if the laws of physics as we know them actually were like existed as they do now. So
Yeah. Okay. So okay. So what's kind of like your kind of base theory on my like? All right. So let me rephrase this because your boy is a little tipsy. All
it's
right.
all good, dude. All good.
So okay. So I kind of believe that a Big Bang happened, blah blah blah, but also it whenever such material were created and it hit another rock, maybe our microorganisms were are kind of like um a shattering of a bigger rock. So the organisms that are on our rock of Earth are an organism that might be found on another rock that is traveling in a different direction through the galaxy.
I think you're referring to the theory of panspermia, where like organisms that came from, let's say, a planet or another planet were traveling via meteors on various things
Mm,
and hitched a ride and landed on Earth or whatever, right?
okay.
Um, that's actually a really viable possibility because it's shown that when Earth gets hit by giant meteors, like 65 million years ago, that actual microbes can actually be ejected into space and survive. So
Mm.
I mean, like, and we actually even have rocks from Mars that were hit, like, when Mars was hit by a meteor, those rocks were actually thrown into space and landed on Earth. So, I mean, it is possible. It's very possible. We just don't know.
Oh, okay. Now, okay, so I don't my knowledge isn't too much beyond, kind of like what a planet's gravity can do and kind of what Earth's gravity can do. Um, Based off of our knowledge, would heat would a heat source kind of survive out in space to the point of it being a heat source, not even necessarily needing air to breathe, but a heat source enough for it to not completely freeze off and just die before it
Um,
reaches something else.
well, basically, it's not so much as you need a heat source, it's basically can the organism survive negative 270 degrees Celsius? Because there's no way that a heat source can actually persist anywhere, like for any length of time, depending on its relative surface area to space. Because as it turns out, every single thing that's above absolute zero, even you, even me, we all emit heat, right?
Yeah.
Basically, we're glowing, but we can't see it. So that energy is being lost. And so
Mhm.
that energy will continue to be lost until the object reaches ambient temperature, which is about 3 degrees above absolute zero in terms of space.
Oh, okay, okay. So how does the Coriolis effect in terms work with heat? If you could explain that.
It doesn't really, actually. The Coriolis effect is basically the way that air gets. If it's something's moving in one direction on a spinning surface, it gets deflected either to the left or to the right, depending on which hemisphere that surface is. So, like, that's why storms twist like counterclockwise in the north and clockwise in the south. And that doesn't really have anything to do with heat, but it's an interesting phenomenon if you're living on a planet that's spinning relatively quickly.
So say something exploded, exerted a great amount of energy, and the heat was bursting out in all directions,
Mhm.
and it passed Saturn. That planet wouldn't have an adjustment on the angle that heat wave was going.
No, Saturn's gravity isn't actually strong enough to bend light. So, I mean, if it passed by a black hole, yeah, it would definitely bend that heat around. But anything that's going past Saturn that doesn't hit Saturn directly wouldn't be affected.
Okay. Okay. It's kind of interesting.
Hmm.
What? So thermodynamics. What? What level of heat or what level of energy should I say do you guys get up to?
Well, for thermodynamics, it goes all the way up to like millions and millions of degrees Kelvin, even billions of degrees Kelvin. Like, but normally thermodynamics just deals with, just regular heat that you see everywhere, every day. Planetary thermodynamics is actually really interesting. It's because planets are actually open systems, right? Like they have a heat input and they have a heat output, and they have like a general like reservoir of heat. So like for Earth, you can think of it kind of like as like a bathtub, like that's half full of water. So like the sun could be like the tap, and it's like half on, and like all the water that's flowing into the tub is heat. And then you can picture spaces like the drain, where like it's draining water out, where that's heat as well, right? So if you can balance the heat that's coming in and going out, then the water level stays the same, which means the planet stays the same temperature. But in case of like planetary change, thermodynamics, global warming, and such and such. If you reduce the amount of heat that leaves, then the planet will get warmer, right? And that's exactly what carbon dioxide does.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, so okay, can you explain like all right, say what happened? All right, so why is it that when say you throw a grenade, at least from my knowledge from like say a movie or something, you
Okay.
throw a grenade into a water, it will implode on itself before it explodes.
It technically it doesn't, but the pressure of the water, because water is really dense, right? Water is like denser than concrete. Did you know that? I think that's really cool. But the force of the water actually overcomes the force of the explosion heading outward in a relatively short area, and so it just collapses in on itself. But that being said, that creates a great huge pressure wave in the water that could potentially kill anyone that's in the water with them, with that grenade.
Mm, yeah. Okay. Okay. What made you get interested in like thermodynamics and stuff like that?
Basically, it was kind of like, when I was a kid, I was studying botany. I finished my botany degree, and I finished my, like, with my political science minor, and I was just like looking around, like, oh, what should I go into as a, a career? Because my parents wanted me to get a job and shit. So it's like, oh, well, I was kind of wanted to explain, how like, climate change is an issue for food growth and stuff, and everyone's just like, oh, well, you don't know how climate change works, right? So I'm just like, well, let me learn then. So basically, that led me down to atmospheric science, and then thermodynamics as the most fundamental part of global systems, which is how the theater in which climate change works under.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, without getting too political and everything, what are your views on some of the things that are um, kind of damning us as humanity towards the effects of say like ozone layer and stuff like that?
Hmm. Well, I mean, we're not really doing anything to stop our carbon dioxide emissions. I mean, we actually have we've we've done a lot of actually good stuff when it comes to ocean depletion. We've passed the Montreal Protocol, which actually bans CFCs all over the world, which is actually really great. If it wasn't for
Mhm.
the Chinese black market, but that's
Yeah.
beside the point. But that the
Yeah.
Montreal Protocol actually shows that we can actually come together as a species and deal with an existential threat. But yeah, like I mean, as it turns out now, we're not doing anything to stop climate change, which is stupid. Like I mean,
So what are the yeah, I am, Michael. Um like what are the forces that are kind of depleting the ozone?
well, basically for the ozone, it was carbon chlorofluorocarbons, which is CFCs. They were just reacting with ozone to like deplete it, um, and came from like aerosols and like stuff like freon and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but When it comes to ozone, like, I think that's kind of like a secondary issue because we have been dealing with it. But when ocean anoxia comes to full fore, that'll gonna go out the window. But anyways, that's beside the point. Somebody wants me
Can
to
can
please explain it.
can you explain that to me? Because I just looked that up really quick, and I was just kind of like, what the hell
It's
is
like
this?
explain oceanoxia. Okay, fine. You want me to explain oceanoxia? So basically, oceanoxia is what happens when the planet reaches 6 degrees above warming, 6 degrees above what it was before, like the Industrial Revolution. It turns out that it might be even less than that, but it will kill all the phytoplankton that produce 50% of all of our oxygen. And that means that when they die, they will deplete all the oxygen in the oceans. And when that happens, anaerobic sulfate reducing bacteria will take over. And that will produce massive amounts of hydrogen sulfide, which will suffocate everything.
Mm.
Hydrogen sulfide also has the added bonus of destroying ozone. So it'll also create, like, a hellhole in terms of ultraviolet radiation. So basically, it's something that we don't want to happen.
Yeah,
And
that's a problem.
because like hydrogen sulfide is not only an acidic, like highly acidic, and it will actually turn to sulfuric acid when it touches your mucous membrane. It will destroy the ozone, and so you can't be able to go outside at all. And humans can't deal well with low oxygen environments. Basically, the lowest we can go is like 19.5%. And if ocean anoxia gets like full blown, it'll drop to like about 10 to 15, and that will just basically kill us all. So, yeah, that's kind of why I'm concerned about it a lot. So, yeah, I mean, and
Yeah.
there's evidence that this has happened before, like during the Permian Triassic. 300,000 years of like the Siberian Traps being a constant volcanic eruption did the same thing. It caused all the phytoplankton to die, and that caused like the oceans to go anoxic, which caused this massive release of hydrogen sulfide, and that destroyed 90% of all life that lived on the planet at the time. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. Shit. I mean, fuck. I mean, it's kind of like what it sounds like. It's just like you damned if you do, you damned if you don't.
Well, kind of yes and no. I mean, there would be a lot of things that we have to change. But the thing is that a lot of people are saying, "Oh, we should go to Mars or whatever." But the thing is that the very same things that we need to change to be able to live in space are the things we need to change to stay on Earth. So,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's kind of a paradox, with you have to save Earth to leave it.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that. I feel that. So, okay. Leading to the next question with thermodynamics, saving Earth. What would actually happen if, say, a nuke of equal power, there were, say, X amount, and each major country had one? What happens if they all fired them at the same time and they all hit?
Um, Basically nothing because well, nothing in terms of heat because we've added like several billion worth of Hiroshima nukes of heat to the atmosphere already, just from climate
Oh,
change.
okay.
But but that being said, that
Yeah.
those nukes will throw up a lot of dust and gas or whatever debris into the atmosphere. That will block a lot of sunlight, and that would cause a nuclear winter, and that would actually be really bad as well because the thing is, like, when it comes to living things, it's like we don't like it doesn't they don't like change very much. Like, you know, they don't like to have drastic changes like happen so soon. So that will cause another mass extinction, and then it will be in the same boat, basically.
Yeah. Okay. 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 So basically, you're saying it's just like almost like a metaphorical fucking meteor about to hit.
Yeah, basically, like it would just be like "We Are the Meteor," which is a band now apparently, but yeah, and then yeah, they'd be like, it would just be like it would it's I forgot what I was talking about.
Yeah, just the fact that if something was large enough to hit the Earth, it
Oh
would
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of just
yeah. We were the yeah. It would just like it's the same thing, right? Like it's the same like the same premise. Like if there's enough explosion, if there's enough like force to throw enough dust or gas or whatever into the atmosphere, that would block out sunlight, and that would actually reduce. It'd be like going back to the bathtub thing. It'd be like turning off the tap, right? Like so all the
Mhm.
water would just drain out of the tub. So basically, planet would freeze over.
Okay. So it wouldn't have any effect, like say like the Earth's core is X amount of fucking hot or whatever.
The
And
planet
then
the
huh?
planet's core is so many times more massive than anything we could possibly throw at it that it
Mm.
really wouldn't be like it wouldn't affect it anything at all. Like anything we could possibly throw at it wouldn't do anything to the planet.
Yeah. Okay, I feel that. I feel that. Damn, dude, this is like that's the one thing I love about science because you figure out like, oh shit, if I do this, I do this, this might kill me. But then it's kind of it's bad to hear that because it's just kind of like, shit, I'm still gonna do it.
Yeah, I know, right? Like it's just like it's kind of it's a double-edged sword because like we're all curious like oh what happens if we do this or what happens if we do that, but sometimes we don't think through the consequences of our actions, and like it's just it's sad because a lot of potential that we have is really cool, and I have a lot of faith in humanity. I think that we can figure this out if we really tried, but we're not trying, and so that's kind of like what disappoints me a lot.
What do you think in terms of Space Force? What do you think that it should mean?
I think that Donald Trump should focus more on things that we could do to fix Earth first before we were focused on Space Force. I mean, there's really nothing we need to defend ourselves from except for giant flying rocks. And,
Yeah.
basically, NASA's actually probed a lot of that stuff already, and it turns out that there's less than 1% chance of anything happening to us in terms of a meteor hitting us in the next 100 and something years. Whereas, the chance of ocean anoxia happening is 100% if we do nothing. So, I mean,
Yeah,
so
yeah, I
yeah,
feel that.
I mean, it's a kind of a skewed priorities thing. That's in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. Shit. Well, so okay. Now another question I have. Like coming together with say like my theory of something hitting another asteroid and kind of spitting off chunks and say we're one of those chunks. Now, how are we to measure their intelligence to say that they're a higher intelligence of life form when we only have the human intelligence as the measure?
Are you saying like if we were to meet like a more like a different species or something from
Yeah,
another planet?
like say it's way beyond us. So say they do whatever. I forget who said it. It was I forget this cucklord's name. Fucking, but he said something about sending a spaceship out with like 10 different families that just like want to fuck, you know, and just kind of having, yeah, having these 10 families mass produced on this spaceship for the
Okay.
next like 1,000 years or like 7,000 years. Yeah, until we get out to the next closest like Proxima, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then on that planet or that solar system, find the Goldilocks zone, and then we should be able to find something that's of comparable intelligence. But
Uh, it's kind of hard to it's really, really hard to determine intelligence because, first of all, we have a skewed vision of intelligence right now. Kind of, we're like people who are only good at math and science and blah blah are only intelligent, but that's not true actually because there are a lot of different types of intelligence. Like people can be intuitive or emotionally intelligent, or people can be very
Yeah, street
creative or
smart.
artistic, right? Or like even
Yeah.
like people who compose like lots of crazy music. Those people are intelligent too. But like saying that one type of intelligence is more important than the rest of them is kind of like denying the fact that we as a human society need all of those things, right? So
Yeah.
I think we kind of have a skewed, this, like we're coming from a biased place to begin with. That's what I'm thinking. So I think that the conversation needs to change first before we can actually discuss whether or not something is quote unquote more intelligent than us or not. But that being said, let's say we get to another planet and it's compatible with us. Should we colonize that planet? What do you think?
Oof. See, now here's the thing. Like, I think we should, but only if we're smart enough to be able to figure out what they're doing on the planet before we land.
Um,
Not
I don't know.
go on.
Well, see, well, no, go on, finish. I'll say what I want to say after.
Well, so I just feel like maybe say like we land on the planet, say we don't land if we don't land on the planet and we crash or whatever, then they're gonna get whatever material we use to get over there, kind of figure out how smart we are, and then say like, hey, these guys are idiots. They can get out here and they can do all this, but they can't figure out how to land. You know, I don't want to fuck with these guys, and if I see him again, I feel like I could take him out. You know,
That's hilarious. No, no, that's awesome. That's awesome though. But like, I was thinking like, let's say even if there was no intelligent life there, like, should we like let's say we find a planet that's like thriving with life and like everything and it's compatible with our genetics and stuff. Should we land on it?
yeah.
Should we?
I feel like we should, but we should do it with extreme caution in the sense of we shouldn't just go down there and say, right when we land, we're gonna figure out what's going on. I feel like maybe we should find the planet and then put some type of satellite to orbit it or figure out what the gravity is, figure out all that stuff, and then send maybe another backup force, and then we colonize it. Before we just say like, all right, we found it, we see some people walking around, let's fucking go. You know?
Fair enough. That's fair. That's fair. That's awesome. I think that we shouldn't. Personally, I think that it would be a bad idea. And why I think that it's a bad idea is because, well, let's think about what happened when Europeans reached the New World. Basically, they brought over crazy diseases, and that wiped out most of the population, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What's to say that we have a right to do that to another planet? Or what if, the opposite happens and we get there and all of a sudden we get a disease and then we bring it back to Earth and then everyone dies? Like, should that be good or should that be bad? Like, should we risk that? I don't think we should.
That is the goddamn truth too. Because humans are absolutely fucking disgusting.
Oh,
So we'll
yeah.
bring
Oh,
we'll bring
yeah.
everything, and then like we'll fucking spread it to every
Oh,
fucking
yeah,
planet.
totally. So, I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, see, like, I don't think we have the right to threaten other biospheres like that. So if we ever find another planet that's like living, I think we should leave it alone.
Okay. 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 I could agree with that. I could agree. I didn't see. I didn't think, but and that's a good thing that you mentioned that because it's like due to past history, uh, it's just like we find a territory that was not discovered, and it's like it's ours.
Yeah.
We're gonna do everything in our power. May it be, knowledge of something they don't have knowledge of, or may it be just force. We're gonna try to get that land.
Yeah. See, but like there are things that we don't even know that we don't even know, right? Like according to Donald
Yeah.
Rumsfeld in his great poem, like, there are things that we know, and then there are things that we know that we don't know, and then there are things that we don't know. So I mean, like, those
Yeah.
unknown unknowns, right? Like, we just have to figure to see what we do, like if they come and manifest themselves, right? But I don't think we should risk like two entire biospheres, because that would be ours and theirs, over like
Mm.
something that we don't know.
You see, okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. Now, okay, so what I'm guessing, or I guess my next thing is, so we have a Goldilocks zone in our solar system where,
Hmm.
our Earth is just thriving. It's that perfect threshold. But also along with that, if say we do get to another solar system and their sun is larger than ours and and putting off more energy and everything, would their Goldilocks zone, how would it be affected? Like in
Well,
the sense,
yeah, it'd be well, technically, I think the Goldilocks zone is a little bit of a misnomer, because yeah, sure, like it's in the area where liquid water can exist, but if you could alter the planet's like chemistry, like atmospheric content, you could actually put a lot of planets that are normally outside of the Goldilocks zone into the Goldilocks zone. Like say like Mars, if we just pumped up its atmosphere, it would just be like almost as warm as Earth. But that being said, a larger star would have its quote unquote Goldilocks zone farther away from the star. So let's say where Earth is, it would not be there. It would be like, let's say, where Mars or Jupiter is. But that being said, larger stars tend to live less long than, like, the sun. So if it's a large enough star, it would only last a few million years. So it wouldn't even be worth colonizing.
yeah, okay, okay. So shit. Like, so what? Okay, so what effect would it play if, say, we got to another planet, we colonize Mars, whatever, whatever planet would be our next inhabitable, but then say like a big ass asteroid that we haven't been calculating comes whizzing past Mars, and it's just so big that it kind of just wings the orbit just a little bit. Now, how would that affect the new Goldilocks zone that we created into the new orbit that it
Well,
just got?
it really depends on how the meteor affects the planet's orbit. You could either swing the orbit in such a way that it becomes super elliptical, like a super eccentric orbit, where it like comes really close to the sun and then goes really far away from the sun, or it could just
Mhm.
like just tweak the planet a little bit, where it's just a little bit closer, or it could tweak the planet a little bit where it's a little bit farther. We just don't know, and we'd have to do the calculations when that happened.
Yeah. Okay, I feel that. I feel that. Yeah, shit, dude. Because like the more and more I get interested into science, the more and more I'm just like, oh
Oh yeah,
shit.
no, totally. But personally, I think that what we should do is find like lots of barren planets that we see that doesn't have life on it, but is like potentially in a Goldilocks zone, and just like bring Earth's biosphere there, and that way we don't have to worry about like contamination or anything. We just like colonize and bring terraform planet after planet, and then we just like they'll evolve on their own, and we'll evolve on our own, and it'll just be amazing. Like you just bring life everywhere. I think that's what we should be doing, personally.
Yeah. Yeah, no, dude, I feel like I mean, if they gave your boy like a fucking $45 million rocket, I mean, send my ass out.
Oh yeah,
Just
totally.
send me, yeah, yeah, like send me out with like like one or two chicks, like boom, we populate.
No, I feel
But
that. I feel that.
but then it's just like I just feel like there's just like that one like effect where it's like like fucking Michael. Like I feel like there's just like would I guess okay, so I guess this is a question I have. If the Earth stopped rotating and the it just came to a fucking halt, there would definitely be the wind drag that would just fucking
Oh yeah,
just
that was annihilate everything. Yeah,
yeah, just smooth the Earth out.
yeah.
But how would that transfer to heat with that wind drag? Would that just fucking make everything that's, core just magma damn near?
It wouldn't get that hot. It would get to a few hundred degrees Celsius though. Like I mean, because of the friction, right? Um, but that being said, it wouldn't last very long, and the planet would cool down really fast. Well, one
Really?
side of the planet will cool down really fast because the other half will face the sun, and it wouldn't move. But the moon will actually cause the planet to start rotating again.
Oh, okay. So, and the moon, like, correct me if I'm wrong. Like the moon is it tidal locked to us right now?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. So so
So
the
what
source would.
if when the Earth if the Earth stopped rotating, the moon would no longer be tidally locked to the planet. So the energy that the moon would try to become tidally locked again, right? So the energy
Yeah.
that it would take to cause the moon to become tidally locked to the planet again would cause the planet to start rotating.
Shit, that physics though. Shit, dude. Like, oh my god. So, all right. So, who do you think? Or do you think that the next person or the first person to say like there's an asteroid coming, they send a rocket over there? Um, do you think the first person to mine that rocket is just instantly the world's first trillionaire?
Uh, no, I don't know because it really depends on like luck. It's really luck because a lot of asteroids and stuff are just a lot of just water and just carbon and just a lot of like junk material. And if you want to find something like rare and valuable, it's a lot of spelunking. And even on Earth, like we do a lot of prospecting and then we drill and we find nothing. So like, I mean, it's really a hit and miss thing. And going from space, it's just yeah, it's insane.
You gotta fucking see the meteor coming and be like, God damn, that's a diamond ass meteor, and then go fucking hit
But
that.
if we had like a meteor that was a pure diamond,
Yeah.
diamond prices would collapse literally like overnight, like because we'd be like, oh well, we can find diamond like literally a whole rock full of it in space.
Oh shit, I didn't even think about that. But shit, it's just like I can't do nothing. I'm trying to get rich quick. Fuck me. Well, okay, so all right, can so the Earth's core what will have to happen to it over the course of time? Will it have to expand? Will it have to stay that exact same size? What will have to happen?
Basically, the Earth is basically just still molten. It has a little tiny crust of like on top, but like it's mostly a big giant bowl of molten rock, which is really cool. Actually, I think that's really cool. We're just riding on this like giant ball of like molten rock all over the place. That's why we have earthquakes and stuff. But like over time, like over a few billion years, it wouldn't cool off enough for it to really matter. It might cool off a little bit. Volcanism, like volcanoes will become less frequent over time. The continents might start moving less fast. Maybe one day the continents will stop moving altogether. But by the time it gets to a point where it really matters, the sun will die anyway. So yeah.
Okay. All right, and the this might be just like a fucking drunk ass question, but at like what level of heat is it start becoming visible?
Probably around 500, 600 to 700 degrees Celsius is when heat starts becoming visible. That's when
Really?
you see you heat iron up and you see it start glowing red.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's basically when heat becomes visible.
So what would it? So say like you were heating up an object, say it was iron or whatever. That's the what iron's that element where it's like nothing can go past it or whatever the bullshit.
Iron is basically the it's a line basically. It's the way that you can fuse atoms together. You know how you fuse atoms together, you get energy back, right? Iron is
Mm.
basically the last thing. As soon as you get to iron, you have to put more energy into it than you get back from it.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So, say you heat up iron, you're heating it. Now, what's the level of heat? Well, so let me just like bring that back down. What temperature does the asphalt need to be for when you look at it, you can start seeing that like almost water, like
Oh,
on top.
uh, that's not that hot at all. It's like 20 degrees, 30 degrees Celsius. It's not the asphalt that's causing that. It's the air on top of it. So basically, you're looking at the air on top of it, like being so warm that it's scattering the light, so it looks like there's water on it.
Mm,
When asphalt gets to like 40 to 50 degrees Celsius, it melts.
really?
Oh yeah.
Dude, this is just like I love and I hate science because it's just like I feel like it just changes my goddamn life every day. And it's just like what did they even teach me in school? Like I feel like literally blue balled in school.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. We should really be teaching a lot more about like science and how to think and technology and stuff in school, especially how to think. Like I think a lot of schools or a lot of education systems tell us what to think and what we need to know instead of how to figure things out and how to learn and how to think. And I think that's a big injustice, like as to what we've been doing as a society.
Fucking Mason's Mason's fucking comment.
I know, I saw it. I'm reading it. I'm like, yeah, totally. I totally identify with that. Still, I'm still just me. I'm not anything except me. I will
Yeah.
always just be me. So I don't.
No, no, I'm just like I mean without getting into the topper, I'm just believer in faith. So
Oh
it
yeah.
doesn't matter where you get that faith from, just
Oh
have
totally.
faith.
Well,
Yeah.
we all have faith in something. Like all of our
Yeah.
understanding as a society is based on one assumption, and that assumption is that causality is a constant. So,
Mm,
you know, cause A leads to effect B, right?
yeah.
That's the fundamental core of our understanding. And if that breaks down, then nothing makes sense. So
Yeah.
basically, we're all operating on faith. But yeah, I
Okay.
actually have to cut this short because my battery is dying. But yeah, this has been fun. Let's do this again, eh?
All right, sounds good.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
I'll message you sometime.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Let's do this. Like I said, I had fun. This is great. I hope you had fun too.
Yeah, oh yeah, I did.
Awesome. All right, cool, dude. See ya. Peace out.
Have a good one.
You too.